Hello and welcome to another thrilling episode of App Development. I know we can't wait to get started. All right, so the next app that you're going to build is, again, taking what we did in the previous lab, which was the Bouncy Ball lab, and extending it to an actual game. So what are we making? We're making a little mini golf game. All right, so here's our little mini golf game. All right, we can fling the ball. And what you'll notice is a little different this time is that instead of it continuing to move like it did in the bouncy ball, it eventually has to slow down, all right? Because otherwise it wouldn't be a very realistic golf game. And then eventually, if I'm good, I can get it in the hole. And then there it is. It's in the hole. Down here, it's keeping track of my current score and my total score. So when I hit the next button, the current score goes back to 0 because I'm starting a new hole, but the total score stays at 3 because I've continued to play. All right, you'll notice these arrows are on the left and the right. These are if you want to line up your shot. So if I hit the right arrow, it moves my ball to the right. If I move the left arrow, it moves my ball to the left. It can help me better line up my shot when I first start. Each time I hit next, you'll notice the barrier and the hole kind of show up in a new spot. So if I hit next, again, it kind of randomly generates a hole. Now, a couple of things here. These arrows that I used, they should only work at the start of the hole. So when I click them right now, the ball does not move because I can only use it at the very beginning to line up my shot. Also, you'll notice that when I hit next, all right, nothing is happening. Next only works when the ball is actually inside of the hole. So if I hit it now, it'll create a new hole. My current score will go to 0. My total score will stay at 8. But that button only works when the ball is actually inside of the hole. So if I touch it now, it won't work. The arrows, again, only work before I take my first shot. Once I take my shot, they won't work anymore. And then there's a reset button that just resets both scores to 0 and makes a new hole. All right, so that's the functionality. There's all sorts of things you can do as extra add-ons if you so choose. You might notice that mine has a little sound effect. That's an extra add-on. You can make it so that if the ball is moving too quickly, it doesn't actually go in the hole. That would be like another add-on. Like right now, no matter how fast I fling it, if it hits that hole, it will go inside of it. You could make it so that it has to be like slow, otherwise it like doesn't actually go in. There's all sorts of ways you can customize this. You could try to make it so this barrier slides back and forth. But this is sort of the base functionality that you need. Now, the lab document will walk you through everything you need to do, including setting up this interface. But I am going to just start a new app and design the interface with you in this video to show you sort of how I'm naming and how I'm setting things up, because it'll make it easier to follow along with the lab if you're using the same names that I am. You don't have to, but it will make it a little easier to sort of follow along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new project as we do. All right, and I'm going to call this Golf. This is my golf app. So I'll click OK here. And I'll get my blank screen. Now, should be no surprise, but the main thing that we're going to need is a canvas. So I'm going to drag in a canvas. Now, as far as setting up the canvas, the width can be fill parent so that it takes up the whole width of the screen. And then the height, 80% should leave you enough room to be able to have your menu bar down at the bottom. As far as, let me restart the emulator because that keeps causing mistakes. All right, as far as the color, the default color, you can change the background color from default to green, and that'll give you sort of the green look that mine had. Now, as far as image sprites, you're going to need 4 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And here, if you want to be able to follow along with my instructions, what I would call is, I would say one of them I would name barrier, right? That way they'll match what I have in my in the lab. One I would call left arrow. I'm changing the name of that one to left arrow. One I'm going to change the name to right arrow. And the last one I'm going to change the name to starting mat. All right, and that's where the ball can start. Now, the pictures are included with the activity, but you are going to have to upload those pictures. So there's 4 pictures. All right, so left arrow. Click OK there. Right arrow. Move me out of the way here. Starting mat, or a T it's called, is the name of the picture file. And then the last one is the wall. Okay, open that up. And then you're just going to want to assign these the correct pictures. So barrier would get the wall picture. Left arrow gets the left arrow picture. Right arrow gets the right arrow picture. And then starting mat gets the, where is it? Gets the T picture. All right. So these at the start can just sort of be manually placed wherever. So I'm going to put the starting mat down here at the bottom. I'm going to put the right arrow off to this side. I'm going to put the left arrow off to this side. And then the barrier can just be wherever you want it for the time being. All right. Now, the hole and the ball and the golf ball are 2 balls. So we're going to drag 1 ball in. We're going to draw a second ball in. All right. I'm going to rename one of the balls to golf ball. All right. So again, if you're following along in the lab, mine is called golf ball. Now, I'm going to change the paint color of that to white. I'm going to change the radius to 5. Actually, it's already 5, so you can just leave that as is. I'm going to change the interval to 10, which will give it sort of a smoother motion to it. And then I'm also going to change the Z property. All right. And the Z property is what ends up above and below. So when you have multiple pictures, multiple balls, by changing this to 2.0, I ensure that the ball always is on top of like the golf mat and the arrows and things like that. So I don't want the ball to end up underneath the mat picture. So by changing the Z property to 2.0, it ensures that the ball ends up on top of the mat. All right. And then the hole, again, you can just kind of put it anywhere randomly up here. I'm going to change that to be called hole because that's what it is. It's the golf hole. And then I'm going to change the size of it or the radius of it to 10. And the paint color, you can leave it as default or you can change it to black, either way. But that is the general course. So I've got my barrier, I've got my ball, I've got my 2 arrows, I've got my starting mat, and I've got my hole. Again, these are both ball properties, where these 4 are sprites. And then the main things you want to make sure you get is the golf ball. You want to make sure the interval is 10, and you want to make sure the Z property is 2.0. As far as the sizes, I mean, you can play with those to get whatever look that you want. All right, now down below that, we're going to do a layout. We're going to do a horizontal arrangement. All right, you can set the width of that to fill parent. And then inside of that, we're going to add 1 label. And I'm going to rename this label. Instead of label 1, I'm going to call it current S for current score. And again, in the lab document, when you see blocks, the blocks are going to say current S. And I'm going to change the text of that to current score colon 0, so that it says current score colon 0. I'm going to add a second label right next to that. I'm going to rename this label total S for total score. And again, anywhere in the lab, that's what it's going to be referred to as. And then I'm going to change the text of this so that it says total score colon 0. Okay. And then last but not least, I'm going to add 2 buttons. All right. One button is going to say, I'm going to rename one button to be the next button. All right, and this is my next whole button, so I'm also going to have the text say next. And then the second button, I'm going to rename to be the reset button. So let me drag that in there. I'm going to rename this to reset. And then I'm going to change the text of that to say reset as well. All right, so that's sort of the layout that you want for your app. And again, if you want to be able to follow along with the lab document, it's helpful to have the same names for your sprites and the balls and the labels and the buttons. So again, you don't have to use these same names, but these are the names that are going to be showing up in the lab document. So it's probably useful for you to take these down. All right, so the only other thing that you're going to need is down in sensors, you're going to need a clock. All right, so you can drag the clock in. Remember, it's not actually going to show up. It's going to go down below. And then I would set the timer interval to 500. And the clock is actually what we're going to use to slow down the ball. And I just think that 500 works pretty well when you're slowing it down. You can play with this during the lab, and if you want to have it slow down even quicker, you could change this number, or if you want to have it slow down slower, you could make this number larger. So again, 500 is a good starting point, but feel free to play with that to get it sort of where you want it. Now, other than that, this is sort of the setup. There's no demo code that I'm going to show you right now. The lab walks you through the code from start to finish. The nice thing about this lab is it's not going to require anything new. It's really sort of building on stuff that you've already done and pulling it all together in sort of one bigger app or game, if you will. All right, so again, kind of use this one as a chance to sort of consolidate your knowledge and all the stuff we've been doing, and really make sure that you're comfortable with it, because there's nothing new, but it is going to require you to take a little bit of everything we've done and combine it. There's like a little bit from the Groundhog app. There's a little bit from the Bouncy Ball app. There's a little bit from, painting app. Like all those different things are sort of combined into this one app. And this should help you sort of get more comfortable with that, because pretty quickly we're going to be coming up on your opportunity to make your own game. So we've got to get a level of comfort and familiarity with some of this stuff. All right. So again, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, please reach out. All right. Bye.